Hello, everyone, and welcome to Clothesline and our special edition, our first edition of Clothesline Retro in English. Who would have thought? Because we wanted to approach our English speaking audience. I'm Orrin Traitman, and this is my friend Gordon.
Howdy, folks.
And here we are here at Clothesline Wrestling, doing our own reviews on various programmings, on various organizations, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and all that. And we decided to take a look back at the older years, the years of professional wrestling, and to tell you that from our experience as Israeli fans living in Israel, of how we were exposed to WWF and how we began to even watch WWF here in Israel. So before we start our first review, let me just tell you a little bit about ourselves. I'm Orrin. I'm about 36 years old. I'm about to be 37. And I've started watching wrestling in Israel since I was 4. We had a channel called Middle East Television, and there I watched the Von Erichs wrestle all the time through, I'm guessing, WCCW. I'm not really sure what organization it was. And then in 1992, Sky Sports started airing in Israel, and we started to watch the World Wrestling Federation. That is pretty much my experience of how I got exposed to the whole business. Gordon, how did you learn about WWF?
First of all, you've described it beautifully. This entire run of how wrestling got to Israel. First of all, we should point out that this is kind of a brand new concept of the two Israelis talking about wrestling back in the day. Now, bear in mind, English isn't our native language. And for this purpose alone, I have brought this Hebrew English hotel, I'm sorry.
Dictionary.
It's a dictionary, I'm sorry, I apologize. And the investment should show this is a brand new vintage dictionary, just in case we shall lack a certain word. Now, my approach to wrestling was different. It came only in about, shall we say, late 1993. I was towards my bar mitzvah then. I was 13 then. I am about to become 39 this late November. And yeah, what you saw in wrestling was this mix of color, shall we say, competition, sort of competition, and this and promos, and you've had all this combined. Where we started with there was Sky Sports and briefly Japan, and we have decided to take this backwards into the days in which you've saw perhaps the second mania of wrestling in Israel, with the first being at the mid 80s, as Orrin mentioned, WCCW. Now, the second mania in Israel came about reached its peak, I'd say, in 1994. There was some of it left back in 1995, but it just died at 1996, and the shows were off the air. Now, we've had a major problems with it, causing violence in schools, with children slamming each other against the chairs and the tables, and the whole educational system had a major problem. Therefore, we had to bring hosts of the children's TV shows to say, no, kids, this is forbidden. Don't do this at home. And
which was absurd. I mean, it was absurd. I mean, come on. An 11-year-old kid can't throw another 11-year-old kid off a 5-story building. I mean, come on. We weren't violent.
That's right. And Israel isn't exactly a peaceful country. I mean, towards each other, we do not use the subtle approach, so we say. Not too many people here converse and say, let's talk about your own. No, they just bash each other up. That's it.
But overall, we're still civilized and we still are very much, very, very much wrestling fans. So when we started this project, the Clothesline Wrestling Channel, we wanted to do our own variation of how we review wrestling and even talk about the good old days. And like I said, when Israel started watching WWF, it started in the mid 90s. And the first event that aired on Israeli television for WWF was WrestleMania 9. But we figured, hey, we're going to start this thing right. We wanted to talk about the entire year of 1993. So we were able to, to procure a video cassette of Royal Rumble 1993. Beforehand, we watched it. And this is our review of Royal Rumble 1993. And it came from Sacramento, California. And our broadcasting team is probably one of the best broadcasting team of all time. Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan. I swear I love these guys, and it's a shame that they didn't do any more pay-per-views afterwards.
Monsoon and Heenan, shall we say briefly, they had what you call it. They had this magic, this chemistry, which few others had. And it showed. You could see these people, I mean, character-wise, couldn't stand each other. Backstage, to the best of my information, best of friends. But in order to pass along this quality of commentary, you had to rely on this dynamic duo in lack of a better definition. But yeah, that is what you saw.
Exactly. You saw a great broadcasting team. You could hear in their every word and every emphasis about how the way they describe the matches, the way they feel so emphasized. I'll still remember to this day, Royal Rumble 92, Bobby Heenan, it's not fair to Flair, the greatest rant maybe in all of broadcasting. I swear to God, that thing was just magic to my ears. And speaking about Royal Rumble 93, this was the first time since the event's inception that the winner of the Royal Rumble will receive a title shot at the World Wrestling Federation champion at WrestleMania. Here's my question. You had this event since 1988. This is like your 6th edition. How did you come up with this stipulation only now?
I wonder just the same.
It just looks obvious. You had this gigantic event like the Royal Rumble. 30 superstars. It started with 20 and then it moved on to 30 superstars. Mm-hmm. And vying for what? Before this, vying for what? Just to win the match?
Look, let's just think about former winners cashing in at WrestleManias. That means a Hacksaw Duggan winning the first one, probably facing, I don't know, back then you had the champion Duggan versus Hogan. No, I don't think so.
Maybe Andre, because of the whole debacle.
Let's think about the guys coming into the Rumble as champions. Big John Studd facing Randy Savage. No. And of course, 1990, Hogan facing himself. Even a lot ago. So, you see
but 91 made sense. 91 made sense because he won the Rumble and Sergeant Slaughter won the championship at the Rumble, so they faced each other. And 92, of course, the title was on the line at the Rumble event. So then we come here, 1993.
Yes, indeed. So also, I think you viewers should know about this. Myself, I can't be considered a current fan. I'm sort of a former fan and what you call
nostalgic.
The resident grandpa of the Israeli audience. Whenever they get something old enough, everyone come forwards and just state, how about reviewing so and so? And when I can assist, I do just that. So there will be some older references in this review. So just so you won't see this as too much of a surprise.
And we'll gladly hear it. So with that, let's start things off. The first matchup on the card for the Royal Rumble 1993 was a tag team match between the Beverly Brothers and the Steiner Brothers. Gordon, your thoughts about the match?
Steiner Brothers, as much as above decent wrestlers, which they were, seemed very much to be out of place in the WWF. I see it as sort of a collision between, quality wrestling and cartoon wrestling, because first of all, this match there's something of a pattern here, which we'll keep on seeing through this evening, in my opinion, at the very least. It is somewhat of a sleeper match, and not in the good sense, because it has tag team wrestling, it has decent wrestling, yet I didn't feel like too much of the crowd were into it. Perhaps at the beginning more so, but during the middle, it was kind of dormant, shall we say. That's what my feeling was.
Well, the way I look at it is like this. First of all, I slightly disagree because I do think the Steiners were over with the crowd. Funny thing about the matchup, the Steiners come in rushing in. They're scared off Howard Finkel, and then we go into the match. And from the looks of it, someone forgot to tell the Steiners that this is not a one-sided affair, that the Beverly Brothers should get a little bit of offense, because the Steiners are demolishing the Beverly Brothers. And then it comes to a point where the Beverlys has to do something very radical to change the tide of the match. Like the Steiners, maybe they just didn't care, or they just simply forgot. Oh yeah, we're supposed to give them like an offense maneuver or something. And then after that, the match ended with, of course, Scott Steiner performing the Frankensteiner, an amazing move by Scott himself to this day. I think he's one of the only few big men that can actually perform that move with a guy his size, maybe even the innovator of the move, if I'm guessing. And also two things that really bother me. Number one, if you see this event on the network, they cut off the Beverly Brothers music and put something generic in there. Why? Stop doing that.
I don't know. The Beverlys had such a good entrance theme.
Yeah.
Why would you? I don't know. Can't you just pay royalties for this entire thing and get it over with?
Who owns the rights to the Beverly Brothers music? I mean, come on.
I don't know. Lenny Poffo. I have no idea. Perhaps the genius, or what's his name? John Tullos, coach.
Maybe. And speaking of Lenny Poffo, the genius, the manager of the Beverly Brothers, where is he? He's gone. He's not even here in this matchup. Did he leave the company?
No, I have no idea. Frankly, I really have no idea at all.
That was just bizarre. Anyway, a pretty decent opener. Very, very weird dynamic, because the Steiners thought this was a one-sided affair. They didn't give the Beverly Brothers any chance. They worked really, really stiff with the Beverly Brothers, by the way. They almost killed them. And yeah, the Steiners won the Frankensteiner, and that was the first matchup of the night, the first opener. After that, we move straight along to the second matchup. Intercontinental title on the line, champion Shawn Michaels facing Marty Jannetty. And these two have had a very wild history and rivalry between them. It all started about a year ago when the Rockers, they were a team known as the Rockers, and they had a falling out when Michaels threw Marty Jannetty into a window in a set of the Barbershop. That was an interview segment with Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And then only a year after, Marty made his triumphant return to WWF. They picked off exactly where they left off. And Marty, while he was trying to attack Michaels with a mirror, retaliation, he hit his manager, Sherry, instead by accident, because Michaels pulled her in the way of the mirror. And then the whole dilemma towards this matchup was, in which corner would Sherry be? Because, she was Shawn Michaels' manager, but he never called her while she was in the hospital. He never cared. He never sent her any flowers. So, when a guy treats you like that, ladies, I mean, come on, you're going to give him another chance? I don't think so. But still, the question before, and I'd like to, if you know the answer, I would like to know that. There's a year gap between the rivalry when it began and when it came to this moment. Why a year? Where was Jannetty?
Frankly, I have no earthly idea. But it is Marty Jannetty we're speaking about. it could be, I don't know. Well, you've probably heard about his, shall we say, current affairs. So anything can happen with Marty Jannetty, from, I don't know, from suspicion of murdering people through a storyline to only God knows what. But let's just focus at the match itself. Let's put the spotlight on the match itself.
I'll give you the heads up. What do you think about the match?
These two had better matches. They are capable of so much more. Now, to the best of my recollection, the rumor has it that it was just Jannetty doing his stuff, literally backstage, and showing up, shall we say, intoxicated to the match, which, well, you saw the result. They will have such a better match later on this year at Raw, where Jannetty wins the title after Michaels oversells a towel shot like a cannonball for Jannetty. But bottom line, it was just such a better match. They could have stolen the show. They could have. The bottom line is they could have. It didn't happen.
Speaking about the match itself, I thought the match was okay. I did not know, or maybe I didn't even remember, that Marty Jannetty was supposedly intoxicated throughout the matchup because it didn't show. Throughout the matchup, Michaels works on Marty's shoulder. It comes to the point where the referees get knocked out, and then Sherry Martel enters the ring. No, sorry, Michael steps to the outside. He tries to talk to Sherry, and she slaps him across the face. He comes back into the ring. Marty grabs Michaels, tells Sherry, hey, come on, hit him again. She takes off her shoe, and when she tries to hit Michaels, Michaels ducks, and she hits Jannetty instead. From there, Michaels performs a super kick that pretty much turns Marty Jannetty upside down, and he pins him for the victory. Michaels retains the championship. Afterwards, Sherry runs backstage. Mean Gene tries to talk to her, and she's all hysterical. And then I don't know if it was planned or maybe they just lost they lost in touch for about a moment. But then Mean Gene just screams at her, "Sherry, calm down! You're hysterical!" And I have no idea if that thing was scripted or not, but it was just gold on. It was just gold on the mic. And from there, Michaels, they confront her. She yells at him, "You said you love me!" And then Marty and Michaels keep at it, fighting backstage. Good ending to this match. And that scene backstage with Mean Gene, priceless. Simply priceless.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. I'm not a fan of Okerlund myself. I think he can be shall we say, a decent interviewer. But if once he goes overboard with the mother-in-law jokes, I'm sorry, that just dates it to no avail.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Oh, if you want to see Okerlund in his worst, go to YouTube, search for Okerlund's, shall we say, discussion on Battle Bowl 1993 of WCW with who is the current Mrs. Ric Flair with Fifi. That would not fly by today.
Oh, man. I think I'm actually going to watch that after we finish this podcast. All right, moving on. The next matchup on the card was between Bam Bam Bigelow and the Big Boss Man. First appearance in a pay-per-view for Bam Bam Bigelow. Last appearance in a pay-per-view for the Big Boss Man until 1998. This is the pay-per-view afterwards he left.
I suppose you're not counting Bigelow's face run in the 80s.
Yeah, but was he in the Royal Rumble?
It's his Rumble debut. He had the first annual Survivor Series appearance.
Wait, but so he was in the Rumble, the first one in '88. So yeah, nope. So this is his first Rumble pay-per-view. All right. So I'll correct myself. This is his first Rumble pay-per-view. He was involved in the WWF back in the 80s. He came back this time as a heel. Mm-hmm. And Big Boss Man, this is his last pay-per-view in the company. He would leave until 1998. He would go on to WCW, stealing his own gimmick and tried to pass as the boss in WCW. But this matchup pretty much was okay. Nothing bad to say about it. It was just okay.
My friend, you are being overly generous by saying this one's okay. All I can remember from this match is one long reverse chillock. This, in comparison to what I'm aware of these two wrestlers, they can do so much better. That was dreadful. Now Bigelow can still move. Sure, he is not the the cartwheeling babyface he was back in the '80s, but he could still pull off a good match. Now, Bossman, I don't know who instructed this tandem to work the way they did, because it is very slow paced and, to me, very very crowd killing. And I think Ray Traylor was still capable of working beyond this skill and not becoming, already in 1993, the bland wrestler he was when he returned in 1998.
I completely agree. I thought the match was just okay. I thought it could be a whole lot better. But in the end, Bam Bam Bigelow wins with the flying headbutt off the top rope, and thus sending Big Boss Man to the fairylands of WCW and to a gimmick similar to the Big Boss Man as the boss, soon to be the Guardian Angel. And
Guardian Angel, Big Bubba Rogers, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And then he finally settled on his real name, Ray Traylor.
Yeah, and even as Ray Traylor, I preferred him as the Big Boss Man in 1998. He was in the 2002 Rumble. Does people remember that?
Like barely. He was the first guy eliminated, so that's why I remember that.
Yeah, I think that's like.
Unfortunately, he also passed away. Unfortunately, he also passed away, I think, September 2002. I'm not sure about the date, but I'm pretty sure that he'll be.
I think it was 2004. I'm not sure, though.
Could be 2004. If I'm mistaken, my apologies. Oh. But he still passed away nonetheless. Moving on to the semi-main event, the World Championship matchup. Bret the Hitman Hart defends the WWF Championship against Razor Ramon. First of all, how this match came about. Razor just was announced as a #1 contender. He attacked Bret's brother Owen, and that's how this rivalry came about, pretty much.
Yeah, back then he didn't need much of a reason. All you had to do was to attack the brother of the current champion, and that would get you a title shot.
Yeah.
Now, if he had no siblings, you'd be in a problem.
Then he would go after his mother. No, but so let's talk about the.
He wasn't an orphan.
Yeah. So let's talk about the matchup. People might think this is Bret Hart's second title defense, but actually not. Bret Hart was a consistent defender of the championship throughout house shows and also various events. And I'm talking everybody. He defended the title against Virgil and Papa Shango and Michaels at Survivor Series, and now Razor Ramon and Ric Flair. He defended the title against anyone, and that's what makes Bret Hart a little bit different than various champions before him, because even though they had house shows back in the day, they put an emphasis on the fact that Bret Hart defends the title against anyone and that he is a defending champion. Very, very, very different approach of when you present your champion towards the audience, in my opinion.
That's true. I seem to remember him even defending it against one of the Beverly Brothers.
Yeah.
He defended against everyone. I don't know. I'm quite surprised he didn't defend it against Finkel.
I always remember his title defense against Virgil because right before the match started, they had this secret handshake. It was one of the coolest things I ever saw. That's why I remember that he defended the title against Virgil. Let's talk about the match itself. The match itself was actually pretty good. And I think it's because of the fact that Bret Hart is the kind of wrestler that it doesn't matter who he's in the ring with, he'll make the match a whole lot better. And I think he even elevated Scott Hall's Razor Ramon's game in this matchup. That's just my opinion.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion.
What do you think?
I should say, Razor was very good to me as a contender. I couldn't picture him as a champion. I've told you this before. Match itself, not bad, even though I preferred their King of the Ring match.
I
This
completely agree.
one this one is a little bit uh, too much relying on the technical side, which Hall wasn't exactly known for. He was more of a power wrestler, but eventually it is verging on the not bad slash good match.
Yeah, I completely agree. The match, I believe, was a very good matchup. Again, because Bret Hart elevated the whole game of Razor Ramon. The ending came when Bret Hart was able to lock in the sharpshooter while they're both lying down, turn him over, shades of SummerSlam 91, and Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, yells to the referee that he submits because you can't tap out in those days. You have to actually say you're submitting. And yeah, Bret Hart retains the championship. His parents are sitting in the front row congratulating their son. And yeah, it's a good look for the Hitman when he comes out of this matchup as the winner, the defending champion. Like I said, Bret Hart in those days was something different, something that WWF was trying to change in their approach of how do you present a WWF champion. And I think Bret Hart was just the right guy at the right time for that thing.
He was very very capable of working a good to great match. I think I seem to remember it was Hall's only submission loss in the company.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so because they turned and face slightly afterwards, and well, faces do lose by submission less often.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't matter in which way you look at it. Um, yeah, as we said, quite a reasonable match, although
I completely agree. And with that, we come to the main event, the Royal Rumble 1993. And like I said, the winner of the Royal Rumble will face the WWF champion, whoever it may be, at WrestleMania 9. And here's the thing about the Royal Rumble. You add that stipulation, and then the way they promote the match, they keep on saying that 4 former world champions are involved in this matchup. And that makes this match more prestigious, right? To me, it sounded like if you have a blockbuster movie and then for the sequel, you only get like one guy and one little sidekick, and that pretty much diminishes the worth of the movie itself.
now it's my turn to say I completely agree.
I mean, when you look at the odds, I mean, it's not like last year that even though last year the title was on the line and you could say that you had a lot of competitors that could win the Rumble, like Undertaker and Sid and Macho Man, and even Piper could have made history if he would have won the Rumble last year. This year, you look at the field, and it's really, really narrow. I mean, what do you got? Randy Savage, Ric Flair, The Undertaker.
It is quite the thin field.
Yeah.
Now, rumor had it that Savage was going to win it all, and I don't know how many people saw Ric Flair as a viable competitor. I think people knew by then his match versus Kurt Hennig on Raw was already announced, and people knew he was stepping out. He accomplished his purpose, and that was it for him. But then again, the concept of a Royal Rumble match is personally one of my favorites, and it is the only match I keep on, shall we say, tuning to every year, even though I know less and less of the competitors at the actual match.
And another thing before we go step right into it, the competitors themselves. This Rumble is plagued with tag teams, and there are a couple of names that did not take part of the Royal Rumble for various reasons. And if those names were in the Rumble, I think the Rumble would look a whole lot better. I mean, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was taken out by Yokozuna, but he was announced for the Rumble beforehand, before he was taken out. Crush was announced for the Royal Rumble, but he was taken out by Doink. So that's kind of a lost situation. Also, you have guys like Bam Bam and the Big Boss Man. You have guys like those, and you don't put them in the Royal Rumble, but you put guys like I don't know, Max Moon or one of the nasties in there. And I'm like, why? I mean, you had good names to put there, good mid-card names to put in the Rumble, but you instead put various tag teams in there. And I mean, just look, it makes the Rumble look weak.
Look, I believe that as to your example mentioning Bigelow and Bossman, they had such a dreadful match. You wouldn't want to see them again later on tonight. It's not a memory you'd like to relive. I somewhat agree with what you said, and there are some interesting stories about some of the participants we're about to see in this Rumble coming on and trying to become the winner and the next challenger at WrestleMania 9, which is, bound to be a major success and a memorable one for all the right reasons. They have decided they should, theme this WrestleMania as the, let me say, for old time's sake, Julius and Cleopatra and all the rest of this stuff for reasons I will never understand.
The thing that Gordon is talking about is before the Rumble begins, we get Julius Caesar and Cleopatra announcing that the WrestleMania 9 pay-per-view will take place at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. So someone had the amazing idea that the whole presentation of WrestleMania 9 will be like in Roman times, with Julius Caesar and togas, the world's biggest toga party. That's what they called it. And we're going to review it on our next podcast. But
these guys aren't the real Caesar and Cleopatra. We are well aware of it.
We don't know. It could be. I don't know. But nevertheless, what can I say? I was intrigued when I first saw it. But of course, I saw WrestleMania later, but before that. But I was intrigued with the announcement. But it gave us something different. And I'm always upfront. I'm always good up for something different, as long as it's something different good and not something different bad.
I'm with you all the way for this one.
And without further ado, here's how it goes. We're going to talk about the entire Royal Rumble. We're going to run down the numbers. I'll talk about every elimination. If there is something more to talk about when talking about a certain elimination, we'll talk more about it. So let's run down the numbers. Number 1, Ric Flair. Nature Boy Ric Flair. Last year he was number 3 and he won the whole thing. This year he comes in at number 1. Now you mentioned that he had.
It could be just me, but it seems like last year's Rumble, or shall we say the Rumble victory, seemed like it was at least 3 years ago. I don't know why. It just seems so. Well, could be just me, as I said. Carry on.
Well, it did happen just 1 year ago, but I know how you feel, because the whole landscape of wrestling changed throughout 92, 93. You come into 93, and what do you got? You don't got Hulk Hogan. You don't got the Ultimate Warrior. You don't got a lot of people that were at the top of the landscape in WWF in those days. And you come into 93, it's a brand new field, and it just feels different. And that's how you feel when Ric Flair enters this Rumble and they tell you he won it last year. That was last year? Yeah.
Seemed like last decade.
Not last decade. So yeah, Ric Flair is number 1. Number 2 is Bob Backlund. We haven't seen Bob Backlund in the WWF since 1983, I think. Since he lost the championship.
It was 1984. Briefly, we've seen him briefly after the Hogan victory over the Sheik for the title. And afterwards, he just went away. He was in, what was the name of this federation? Pro Wrestling USA. He was in the AWA, I believe. And he was just like almost everywhere aside from the WWF. And oddly enough, they bring him back in like middle of 1992. Like, here people. This is the guy. You see this one? He was the former champion. Now, we're not gonna do anything special with him. So get used to it. I've had problems seeing this because I'm a major Bob Backlund fan, if not the only Bob Backlund fan in Israel. So yeah, but this Rumble is quite the example of what he was able to pull off back then.
And the thing about Backlund, nothing bad to say about him or something to say against him. But it's like they took Backlund out of 1984. They cut him up from 1984 and they pasted him into 1993 and then just told him be exactly the same. Don't be scared or frightened by the weird voodoo man you're about to face in the ring or the weird moon guy or the clown, and just accept it. And for a guy like Backlund, I think coming into terms with facing these gimmicks of professional wrestling, I don't think it sit well. I think it didn't even sit well that it made him lose his mind in 1994.
I somewhat agree. Well, it should be pointed out that we've had 4 shows of WWF in Israel in late 1993, the first one, and the other 3 in 1994.
Yep.
And Backlund at the first show, he was on hand defeating the man you've just mentioned, the voodoo magician, Charles Wright.
Yeah.
And I believe it was the same roll-up finish at every confrontation.
So yeah, like you said, he defeated Papa Shango in a match that happened in Israel. Speaking of Papa Shango, he is the third man to enter the fray, and as soon as he enters, he immediately gets eliminated by Ric Flair, like in 2 seconds.
Almost as soon he
maybe 5. I'll give him 7 seconds tops.
He grabs Backlund away, tries to push him up, and Flair, being the dirtiest player in the game that he is, sees the opportunity and just flings him over.
Exactly. Number 4 coming into the Royal Rumble is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, who was one part of the tag team champions in that time. DiBiase also a guy who had his own various history throughout the Royal Rumble. 1990, he was in there for almost 50 minutes, and that's it. and he bought the number 30 spot in 1989.
The feeling that you get once you see Backlund, Flair, and DiBiase in the same ring at the same time, this is like vintage territory heaven.
Exactly.
And yeah, you get this awesome feeling, and it is ruined immediately when Brian Knobbs stumbles in.
Yeah, it's like you have these 3 good old-fashioned great wrestlers, and then this punk kid comes in, and it's Brian Knobbs of the Nasty Boys.
Well, he is a future WCW hardcore champion. I'll give him that.
Yeah. So, yeah, Knobbs comes in. He goes straight after Ted DiBiase, the Nasty Boys, and Money Incorporated. The tag team champions had a rivalry back then. They fight for a bit. The next guy to come in is Virgil, and he starts renewing his rivalry with Ted DiBiase. After that, Brian Knobbs gets eliminated by Ted DiBiase.
DiBiase ducks a charge, and Knobbs goes flying.
Exactly.
This DiBiase-Virgil feud went on forever. I mean, you've had like your shall we say, your feud settler back in SummerSlam 1991. This is Rumble 1993, guys. Get over it. Really.
They'll never get over it. They'll fight till the end. Afterwards, we get the first appearance of Jerry the King Lawler. This is WWF pay-per-view. This actually is WWF debut, I believe. And I don't know if he was in maybe a commentator on Superstars before that, but this guy's a heel. And if you know Jerry the King Lawler, this guy is a major face, a major good guy back in his home turf of USWA. And he comes into the WWF as a heel. So major change for him.
True. You see, you can even somewhat relate to his facial expression. He is much more serious. He wouldn't be, by now, he's still not the comedy king gimmick we're used to.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And then when you say the names of Jerry Lawler, Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase, and Bob Backlund in the ring, you can actually see Gordon salivating from the mouth. When you see all these legends in the ring, it's awesome. No, seriously. Seeing all these guys in the ring, classic wrestlers, is just a sight to see, seriously.
All of these guys and Virgil.
Exactly. Here's a funny spot that happens. I just wrote it down. Okay, Jerry Lawler comes in. Ric Flair fights him off in the ring, and then he walks to the outside. While he's in the outside, the referee starts the count of 5. The count of 5 means that he's going to get disqualified. How can you get disqualified in a Royal Rumble match?
I don't know how, but there are examples later on in decades. Let me remind you of Finlay getting disqualified in the Rumble when he used the shillelagh in order to defend Hornswoggle.
Which also doesn't make any sense because people have used millions of weapons in a Royal Rumble match. Also, I'll take you even before that. 91, Rick Martel was in the Rumble. He goes to the outside, and the referee, I believe it was Shane McMahon as a referee, counts 5. And I'm like, why are you counting here? There's no disqualification in the Rumble. You don't need to count them. Just
here we are again trying to apply logic into wrestling. We're both heavily into wrestling. We know you're not supposed to do that. And still.
The thing that you will learn about me throughout these podcasts and reviews is that I like and I love consistency. You have to be consistent about the things you show in a storyline or in a match. For instance, if you explain the rules of the Rumble before the match, like you go over the top, only 2 feet after the floor and all that, if you don't tell me that if you go to the outside, you get disqualified, then it doesn't apply. It doesn't happen. Then you can't do that.
Myself, I'm quite the consistency fan as well. However, I knew myself to be consistent enough not to apply it to wrestling. Nothing good comes out of it.
All right, afterwards, we get, after all these amazing legends of wrestlers, legendary wrestlers, we get Max Moon. Great. We get Tenryu, the Japanese wrestler we'll know more about the following year at the Royal Rumble as he's hired as a mercenary against Lex Luger. Then we get Mr. Perfect, and when he enters the ring, he immediately goes after Ric Flair. They're starting to fight each other. Then Skinner enters the ring, and from there, Flair is eliminated. Flair is eliminated by Mr. Perfect. The crowd is ecstatic. They talk about it over commentary that tomorrow night they will have their match at the Raw. And if Flair leaves, he has to leave the WWF.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
That is how you do the storyline, folks. That is how you do it.
Yeah, that's how you do a storyline. You make sure that Flair, you don't make people believe Flair is going to win the Rumble if he has a match later on. You see that? That is brilliant storytelling. Afterwards, so like I said, Flair is eliminated. Then Coco Beware enters the Royal Rumble. Skinner is eliminated by Mr. Perfect. Afterwards, we get Samu, Headshrinker Samu. After that, we get the Berserker. Somewhere between all that happening, Max Moon is eliminated out of the Royal Rumble matchup.
Jerry Lawler.
Yeah,
Lawler was sent to the turnbuckle, and Moon followed with some sort of, I don't know what that was. Seemed like a crescent kick.
Something
he hit
like
it once, and he tried that again. And once you repeat a spot, Lawler was smart enough to avoid it, and out goes Moon.
Exactly, because he read the rules before the Royal Rumble, so he knows exactly what to do in that situation. So yeah, so Max Moon's eliminated. After that, Jerry Lawler is eliminated by Mr. Perfect, and then in a show what I could just simply describe as an ultimate survival test, Mr. Perfect literally fights for his life as Ted DiBiase and Coco Beware and Jerry Lawler from the outside of the ring try to eliminate him. And seriously, if there was a man trying to survive in the Royal Rumble in one of the most greatest showing of survival fortitude in a Rumble match, this is it. I have never seen anyone fight for their life as Mr. Perfect had in that specific spot.
You are correct, sir. It is. They shove him away, using hands and feet and everything. And if they had, I don't know, extra heads, they'd probably use these as well. But that is something that, to my understanding, you don't see in wrestling nowadays. It's lack of passion.
I don't know if it's a lack of passion, but it's more of not understanding how that thing would affect the audience. Because if I talk about the Royal Rumble concept, if you win, you get a championship match. I will fight with teeth and arms and legs and whatever I got to stay in that ring. And the way Perfect tried to stay in the match is the way anyone participating in the Rumble should be if he is in that situation. If someone or a lot of people try to eliminate me from the Rumble, I will hold on to the ropes, to their legs, to their arms, with my teeth, just to stay in the match. And when you see this kind of spot, you don't see these kind of spots in these Rumbles these days. And I don't understand why. It's amazing storytelling when you see a guy trying to survive for his life in the Royal Rumble matchup.
Well, suppose I'll go with the flow. I'll go your way. Suppose we try to apply logic and consistency the way you like it so much. He was in 3 previous Rumbles. In one of those at 1990, he was the runner-up.
Yep.
And he failed. So I believe that frustrates him even more this year to be eliminated.
I completely agree. All right, moving on. So afterwards, The Undertaker walks into the Royal Rumble. During that time, also, the Berserker's already in. Undertaker comes into the Royal Rumble. The Berserker takes Bob Backlund to the outside through the ropes. They're both not eliminated. And he attacks him in the outside with a chair.
You missed Virgil's elimination. Virgil is it's tough to notice, but right. somewhere where the pileup on Perfect happened, Berserker big booted him to the outside. No one cares. It's Virgil. No one cares.
Oh, apparently I didn't either because I didn't even write it in my notes. So yeah, Virgil's eliminated, I guess. And so, like I said, Berserker attacks Bob Backlund on the outside with a chair. So yeah, you allow that outside the ring, fine. Consistency. Afterwards, The Undertaker goes to town. He eliminates Samu. He eliminates Tinru. And then Terry Taylor walks in. Terry Taylor walks out because he and Koko Beware fight amongst each other. And then they get both eliminated by the Berserker? No, by Ted DiBiase. By Ted DiBiase. He eliminates both of them. Afterwards, Ted DiBiase is eliminated by The Undertaker. And while he is eliminated, The Undertaker fights against Berserker. Backlund still on the outside, by the way, when all of a sudden, this humongous 7 feet tall, gigantic man walks into the ring. Nobody has any idea who he is. Nobody knows what Harvey Whippleman does with the guy. He stands right next beside him, looks like a midget. And this guy is enormous.
He's blocking the sun.
He's literally blocking the sun in an indoor arena. He walks into the ring facing The Undertaker. The crowd is in awe and shock. He doesn't even comprehend what exactly goes on in the ring. Taker stands next to this giant. He is a foot shorter, and we don't even get the name of the guy. The guy we come to learn his name is Giant Gonzalez. And Harvey Whippleman brought him into the World Wrestling Federation as retaliation and revenge for Undertaker burying Kamala in the previous pay-per-view. And yeah, Giant Gonzalez dominates The Undertaker, eliminates him from the Royal Rumble, even though he's not an official entry. And yeah, and then he keeps attacking Taker near the ring post with his leg, and then he walks off.
Because that is the kind of thing you do once your Ugandan giant is losing to this dead man. All you got to do is get the contract of Elegante from WCW and get this former basketball player to the ring and
put him in a Neanderthal suit and make him attack a dead man.
Look, we joke and kid, but the thing is, whoever reads Harvey Whippleman's book, yes, there is a book, and they can get quite the review, shall we say, of what exact problems Elegante had. He couldn't tie his shoelaces. Whippleman had to do it for him. And in his
because of the suit? Oh.
And in his last days, Whippleman had to support him financially because the Argentinian government just collapsed, and he had to send him money for food, and it was quite a sad story. I know Not exactly the shall we say current Kurt Angle, but still, he was, he was a sight to behold, but he was atrocious in the ring.
I completely agree. He wasn't that good of a wrestler in the ring, but when you speak about that sight of seeing a guy towering over the Undertaker in the matchup, and then you're just in awe. You're just in shock as a kid. You are simply terrified, and you can't even go to sleep because you're seeing this giant demolish the Undertaker in a way no one has demolished him till that point. So yeah, Taker's eliminated, but he still hangs around in the ring a little bit until he recuperates and was able to walk back to the backstage. In the meantime, Damian Demento, while all this going on, he was entering the Royal Rumble. Afterwards, while still this was going on, IRS was entering the Royal Rumble. So now we got Damian Demento, Bob Backlund, and IRS in the ring. They pummeled Bob Backlund. He was almost beaten to death. When to the save comes Tatanka, the Native American. He enters the Royal Rumble, and then the name just keeps flying in. Sags of the Nasty Boys, Typhoon of Natural Disasters, Head Shrinker Fatu, and then Earthquake comes into the Royal Rumble, and the first thing he does, attack his tag team partner, Typhoon.
I'm going to give you a story right here. First of all, it should be pointed out, this is the, how can I put it gently, the not so good half of this Rumble. It is quite dreary. And where shall I begin the story? Okay. First of all, regarding Tatanka, rumor has it that he wasn't in the ring while Max Moon was in the ring because Paul Diamond, aka Max Moon, had an affair with Chris Chavis's wife.
Whoa!
And in order to avoid some real blow up of the Native American sending this science fiction dude all the way to the moon,
Literally,
decided to avoid having both men in the ring at the same time. Wow. That's one. Number two, as for the natural disasters explode. Several years or several months prior to his death, John Tenta, aka Earthquake, was very, very active indeed in the WrestleCrap forum, and he had a section of his own where you can ask him questions. And he explained, to the best of my memory, that both men knew they were on their way out of the Federation. And they wanted to do something special and memorable. They knew they wouldn't have a blow-off. So they decided, I hope at least they have notified the Booker, Patterson, or whoever that it would be, about their actions. But basically that is the explanation.
So they just wanted to do a send-off by their own, do something different, so they went at it?
Yep.
That is actually a memorable way to get sent off.
Indeed.
I have to agree. Yeah. So, yeah, Earthquake and Typhoon going at it, and then Earthquake was able to eliminate Typhoon from the Royal Rumble matchup. Afterwards, we get the Caribbean sensation, the Caribbean legend, actually, Carlos Colon.
The Caribbean youngster.
The Caribbean youngster. How old was Carlos Colon when he entered the Rumble?
Oh, my lords.
Pretty much.
He was, I believe, towards 50.
Yeah, the Caribbean youngster, towards his 50.
It's like 1,000 years old, and one still calls him a youngster.
No offense against Carlos Colon. It was just, the line is that the Gorilla Monsoon calls Carlos Colon this Caribbean youngster when he enters the Royal Rumble. And Carlos Colon has a lot of fame, but a youngster in that time, he wasn't.
Nope, he ain't.
With all due respect, of course, no offense to the Colon family.
We don't want any of the Colones to visit us. And
actually met Carlitos. Actually a pretty nice guy, I have to say.
Yeah, but you didn't insult his father beforehand.
So when Carlos Colon enters the ring, Damian Demento is eliminated by Carlos Colon with a dropkick, I believe.
Was it a
pretty good, decent move?
I think it was a standard backdrop.
Could be a standard backdrop. I'm not pretty sure, but I'm pretty sure that he was eliminated by Carlos Colon. Then El Matador, Tito Santana enters the fray. And a quick word about Santana. Santana had no gimmick Absolutely no gimmick until 1992. And then I just wonder who came up with the idea. Tell him, you know something, Santana, you're Mexican, I believe, you're Hispanic. Let's give you a Spanish bullfighter gimmick and call you El Matador Tito Santana. Now, I love the gimmick. I loved the gimmick.
Shall I grant you with the story directly from Santana's book?
Please.
Okay. The thing is, Santana, as you said, was like gimmickless from, shall we say, about the Strikeforce breakup back in WrestleMania 5 and onwards into, let me see.
Late 91.
Survivor Series 91 was the pay-per-view in which he debuted the El Matador gimmick. Yeah. Now, between these two time periods, he actually, I believe, complained about the lack of gimmick. And whoever it was in creative said, okay, we'll give you a back to your tradition gimmick of a Spanish bullfighter, of a matador. He said, okay. And he's waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and inquiring about the gimmick change. And then it was given to him. He had to shoot the promos for this new gimmick. And basically, aside from the gimmick change, he remained in the exact same position.
So yeah, that was El Matador Tito Santana. I really loved the gimmick, but I just couldn't comprehend how they came from nothing to a gimmick of an El Matador. But that's just me.
That's just the basic story. Like, they did nothing aside from refreshing his gimmick. And after this specific refreshing, he probably preferred to remain gimmickless.
I guess so. The Rumble continues on. Hedrick and Fatu is eliminated by Bob Backlund. Afterwards, Rick Martel enters the Royal Rumble, immediately goes after Tito Santana. And then we see Erwin R. Shoikster, IRS, eliminated when he comes charging into Earthquake. Earthquake ducks, and Erwin R. Shoikster catapults himself over the top rope, and he is eliminated. The next man to enter is Yokozuna. Yokozuna had the privilege of drawing number 27, which by now is, of course, the number that most winners of Rumbles past have won with this number. Afterwards, after Yokozuna, I believe the other two will be Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the second guy to win in the number 27 spot. When he comes in, bodies starts flying out. Tatanka tries to charge him. He's eliminated. Carlos Colon tries to beat him. He's eliminated. Then we come to the big man match. We had Earthquake Typhoon. Now we have Earthquake and Yokozuna. They are going at it, and Earthquake is coming charging in. And then when he comes to charge in once again, Yoko blocks him with an elbow, grabs him in a belly-to-belly, and basically belly-to-belly suplex him over the top rope, which is completely amazing to me, how he was able to do that.
It is quite the creative elimination. I'll give you that. It is, first of all, we should mention Yokozuna is like fresh off the boat here. He had his Survivor Series 92 debut versus Virgil, and that is basically it. He's got nothing to show for. Nothing of
build up, no momentum, no nothing. Just one win at Survivor Series.
A guy in a sumo fighter gimmick, well, he's given this despite being Samoan. It's somewhat of a mess, but still, he is quite the threat.
He is quite the threat, and basically one of the odds-on favorite to win this, because who could throw him over the top rope? I mean, the guy's over 500 pounds at this point. The Rumble continues on. As Earthquake is eliminated by Yokozuna, Owen Hart makes his way to the ring. Then we come to the Repo Man. Now, explain to me, what exactly is the Repo Man? Because when you look at him, he looks like a thief. But he tells you that he's a man who repossesses stuff. Like if you're late on your car payments or something like that, he will repossess your car. But why does a repossessed guy dress like a thief? How does that even work?
I cannot vouch for this gimmick. I can tell you this. He sneaks into the ring. And while sneaking into the ring, of course, he tippy-toes into the ring. And that, of course, means the other wrestlers in the ring won't hear him. Doesn't matter that the buzzer hits and everyone knows to look towards the entranceway. Who's coming in? Ah, that's the guy that tippy-toes in. That's probably no one special.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I loved the gimmick. I think Barry Darson did a tremendous job with the Repo Man gimmick. I love this theme music. But I love the whole approach of Barry Darson when he comes sneaking in to do a move. It was awesome. But the connection between a Repo Man and a thief, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, the name doesn't make any sense. But it worked. It absolutely worked.
Is non-existent.
So, yeah, Repo Man comes in. Santana tries to recruit everyone in the ring to eliminate Yokozuna. And Yoko just beating him up one at a time, and he's able to get out of that situation. And then we come into number 30, and it is Macho Man Randy Savage at number 30. Like we said, we didn't have a lot of big names in this Rumble matchup. And the last name to be in this matchup is actually the last number, is Macho Man Randy Savage. And the first thing he does when he enters the ring, he tries to kill the Repo Man. Because they had a rivalry going on in 93 because Repo Man stole his hat.
Yeah, those were more simple times.
A lot of simple times.
You ripped off someone's equipment, someone's ring apparel, and that sufficed in order to settle a feud between these two people.
Yeah, I mean, today is like you have to kill someone to get a storyline going on.
This entire elimination streak of Yokozuna can be described as the UN. He is eliminating every nationality out there. Every single one.
I completely agree. From Spanish to Native Americans to Caribbean and others along that. So all 30 participants are in the ring. Like I said, Macho Man immediately attacks Repo Man. Tito Santana is eliminated by Yokozuna. Sags is eliminated by Owen Hart, who they were actually kind of a mix-up because Sags was holding, I believe, Rick Martel. Rick Martel ducked. Owen Hart drop kicked Sags out of the ring. Afterwards, Owen Hart tried to charge Yokozuna. Yokozuna throws him also out of the ring. Also, I think almost breaking his ankle.
Yeah, very, very painful spot.
Yeah, very, very fearful spot.
For reason we won't see Owen Hart again on pay-per-view until the Survivor Series.
Yeah, because of that. No, actually, on pay-per-view not, but we did see him in action on around SummerSlam time when he faced Jerry Lawler in a one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He loses, I believe, the King of the Ring versus the Papa Shango.
Yeah, he was in the King of the Ring, like the Dark Show against Papa Shango for the USWA.
Only at the Survivor Series.
Yep. And we'll talk more about that when we reach that pay-per-view King of the Ring later on. So Repo Man eliminated by Randy Savage, and we come to the final four: Backlund, Rick Martel, Yokozuna, and Randy Macho Man Savage. Rick Martel, this is probably the highest he has ever gone in the Royal Rumble match because he was in the final 5 2 years ago. So this is it. Final four, Rick Martel tries to fight Backlund, and Backlund eliminates him. Now, when you look at that situation, Martel drew number 26. Backlund drew number 2, and he's able to eliminate Martel. Kind of makes Martel look like a joke.
No. My friend, you are once again trying to apply logic. That won't do, I'm afraid. By the way, it should be said, Backlund looks wasted.
Oh, yeah. Backlund, by that time, broke the longevity record in the Royal Rumble matchup. He was in there for, if I take Mr. Perfect's word for it, when he told us in the Rumble 96, 1 hour, 1 minute and 15 seconds for Bob Backlund. That's the time he said. It's around that time. So he was in there for over an hour. He broke the record from last year from Ric Flair's record, and he is completely out of it. He's wasted. He's tired. But the crowd cheers for him like maniacs. He completely has the crowd support. Yokozuna at that time, he tries to fight him, but Backlund tries to fight him off. A drop kick. Yokozuna starts to step back. Another drop kick. He leans toward the rope, and Backlund says, "This is it. This is my shot." He comes charging in, and Yoko throws him over the top rope.
Just like you would do at the 1996 Rumble.
Exactly the same way at the 96 Royal Rumble. A sad story about Backlund, but what a story. I mean, drawing number 2 and going almost all the way into the final 3 people in the ring and lasting over an hour in a match. For a guy that makes his comeback to the WWF, this is awesome.
But what's he got to show for it?
Absolutely nothing.
At next WrestleMania, he gets a nothing match versus Scott Hall. Why? I don't really get it.
Because it's about the new generation, Gordon. It's about the new generation, and Backlund has to be humbled. Who cares if he was an hour, 1 minute, and 15 seconds in the Rumble? He needs to lose at WrestleMania. But we'll talk about that when we get to WrestleMania 9. So we're down to 2, Randy Macho Man Savage and Yokozuna. And if you think for a second that Savage will be able to take that 500-pound monster of a sumo machine over the top rope, they're absolutely out of your mind, because, Yokozuna demolishes him. He demolishes Randy Savage. He squashes him like a million times. Leg drops in his face. And then the ending came when Savage makes his triumphant comeback. He does a clothesline. He does that double axe handle off the top rope. Yoko goes down. He lies on the mat. And maybe the strangest elimination in Rumble history, Savage climbs the top rope. He lands his patented signature elbow drop on Yokozuna. He tries to pin him in a Rumble match. Yokozuna kicks out, and from that velocity of a kick out, Savage is thrown over the top rope and onto the floor. Yokozuna wins the Royal Rumble. What the hell was that?
I suppose you're looking for an explanation. You'll get none.
Listen, this is Savage's 4th Royal Rumble match. Last year, he forgot the rules when he jumped over the top rope to attack his then nemesis rival, Jake the Snake Roberts, but was allowed to come back in the ring because he eliminated himself. And you cannot eliminate yourself, something that people actually forgot down the road.
Knowing what we know about Savage today, how surprised are we?
Not really, man. Not really. So, yeah.
This is Randy Savage. He is a dynamic personality, and he sometimes forgets what it's all about. So, there you go.
Yeah, the enthusiasm got the better of him. He tried to pin Yokozuna. Yokozuna kicked him completely out of the ring. And yeah, Yokozuna, in his second pay-per-view in the Wrestling Federation, is basically, he started his career in the WWF about 3 months ago, and he's already challenging for the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 9. An incredible feat, an incredible accomplishment, and a signature by the company that says, we are building this monster all the way till the end. We're putting a rocket to him, maybe a couple of rockets, he is 500 pounds, but a couple of rockets to him and tied him straight to the moon. He's going to WrestleMania. What do you think about the winner of the Royal Rumble and the Royal Rumble match itself?
This is quite complicated because I love the Rumble mostly based on Backlund's performance. Rumble itself was, shall we say, not bad. The matches were very, very, how can I put this, average at best. Shall we rate this?
Yeah, according to our Clothesline Racing Channel rules, every event will be graded 1 till 10, and there even is a 0 if the show was a complete catastrophe. Gordon, I'll give you the first first privilege. Grade this event 1 till 10, and there's even a 0 if the show was a complete catastrophe. What is your grade for this event?
Since I've mentioned what I think about the Rumble, I should concentrate on the other matches. These matches, again, they weren't bad. They had something going, just not in not in fourth gear. Let's put it this way. So I'll place it in 6.5.
All right, very well. So here's my pretty much review of the Rumble itself. It was a decent Rumble. It was an okay. The matches were okay. Nothing that I'll probably remember until maybe tomorrow. As for the Rumble match itself, it felt a little bit disappointing because I'm a huge fan of the Rumble. Like Gordon, this is my favorite event of the year. And when you look at the Rumble, you look for big names to enter it. And when the prestige of fighting for the WWF Championship is on the line for the first time, you would think that the Federation would try to procure even bigger names for this matchup because of the amount of the opportunity that it presents before it for the winner of this matchup. And all you got as for big names are The Undertaker, Ric Flair, Randy Savage. That's it. 3 big names. Maybe you can add Perfect because of his major rivalry with Ric Flair, but still 3 big names, and that's it. Pretty much all the other wrestlers in the match were in the match, except for Yokozuna, which they build up tremendously in this match, were just mid-carders and low-carders and tag teams, which diminishes the importance of the Royal Rumble matchup, especially when they have a title opportunity on the line.
Could you see Backlund as the dark horse?
If they were planning to do something with Backlund, then Yokozuna could not have been in this Rumble. Because for the first time I see Yokozuna in this matchup, I can't see anyone getting him out of that ring. Anyone. I mean, maybe Earthquake, but that guy couldn't get the job done. So who could? Who could? Man, seriously. Maybe The Undertaker, but he was eliminated earlier on. So you could have done the story with Backlund, but because no one really remembered who Backlund was in that time, I think it would be a pretty hard sell. So I go with the eventual winner, Yokozuna. I think it was a good choice. But the entire participants in the matchup were a little bit disappointing. My grade for this Rumble, a 6 out of 10. I think it was a decent Rumble. I think it was an average Rumble, a little bit more than average, I could say, but not one of the best Rumbles that I can remember.
Okay, I got you.
And that was pretty much it. This is our first Clothesline retro review of Royal Rumble 1993. And as we said, we are going to review the entirety of wrestling events from now until probably the end of time. And we continue with WrestleMania 9, the first pay-per-view to air on Israeli television. And we'll give you our own perspective and our point of view as Israeli fans as we give our own review to WrestleMania 9. Gordon, can we say we can expect a good event or not?
I can say we can expect how should I put it, quite the event.
I have to agree with those words. So once again, thank you for watching. We're hoping you enjoyed this review. And also, we would like to hear your comments about what you think about Royal Rumble 93. What did you think about this podcast? We would love to hear your comments down below. And also, if you want to stay notified when we're uploading these videos, hit a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification button. And we'll see you next time on our next Clothesline Retro review. Thank you for watching.